Hello everybody, welcome to the YouTube channel today. What we're going to do is learn about repotting the tree and the importance of repotting your tree really on a regular basis. This is a dwarf water jasmine tree. It's been in this pot probably for 3 years and has not been repotted. I know that because it's my tree and I hadn't had time to get to it. But how are you going to know when your tree at home is root bound? There's several ways to know when it's root bound. So one of the ways is when you water. When you're showering the top of the soil line, if the water is puddling on the top of the pot and it's not quickly seeping in, that's telling you that the tree is root bound. You'll notice that the water will start basically seeping in on the edges of the pot where the soil line meets. It's the same idea, you know, if you're walking your dog on a trail and you see he's thirsty and you're at the stream, you can cup your hand like this, right? And you can drink water out of your hand. So that's what happens when the tree is root bound. All the roots are locked in like this. It's not allowing the water to get to all of the roots. It's watering the perimeter of the plant. And this can start leading to the tree dying because it's not getting enough water. That's one way to tell. Another surefire way to tell, which is trusty chopstick. You should be able to take this chopstick and very easily put it into the soil. And it's telling you the soil is loose. But if you look at this, I have to really push it really hard to even get inside of the pot. It's super tight, even hard for me to pull it out. That's telling you that this tree is root bound. You really should repot most of your trees about every spring. But where I was growing trees in Florida, some things go really fast. We definitely have to do it every year. Some trees, it can be every year or so before you have to actually repot the tree. So today in repotting, we're going to be cutting this root system down by quite a bit. We're going to rake away a lot of the existing soil that's here, repot it with all new soil that's going to be able to drain very freely. It's going to allow the root system to breathe, and also for the new hair roots, which carries all of your water and nutrition to the tree to meander through the soil. It's going to hit these aggregates of stone that's in my mix, and it's going to cause it to wrap around it. It's going to ramify. The root is going to multiply, and it's going to create more and more hair roots as it hits these harder portions of rock that's in the soil. So the aggregate is there to make sure that the tree can drain well, but it's also there to make sure that we can create a more dense root system. The more hair roots we have, the more easily the tree is going to absorb water, and it is going to absorb the food. So the first step that we have to do this morning is to be able to take this out. So a lot of people like to joke at me why I use a tool that's used for electricians. I've had this tool for probably 30-something years. I brought it from Louisiana. Actually, I've had it probably close to about 47 years. It's just kind of a part of me, so I like using it. And also I have arthritis. So some of these tools sometimes hurt my hand to use them. So the first thing we got to do today is we got to take this wire out. Every bonsai tree is wired into a pot. This wiring comes as thin as a piece of hair up to like a 5 millimeter, 8 millimeter even big, like the size of a pencil. So every tree is going to be wired into the pot. So the trick today is going to be able to get this tree out of this pot. And that's going to be a little bit of a challenge, because if you notice, this pot has a belly here. We call it a Buddha belly pot. I absolutely love this pot, but it's a difficult pot to use when it comes to repotting, because if this thing is really tight, and I'm sure that it is, it's going to be very difficult to lift this out. This lip is going to hold it in. So the first thing we're going to do is we just remove all of this wire, make sure we don't have anything in the way. Just get it out of our sight. We're going to start with the chopstick. And I'm just going to go around the edges of this. And you probably even hear this. It's pretty tight. I did water it yesterday, so it's loosened it up some. So we're going to go all the way around the pot like this to make sure that we can get it separated from the pot without having to do some major surgery. But I think we probably will have to do some major surgery on it. I've seen people just go to repot this and they crack the pot. There's no way I'm going to break this pot. This is like a $400 high quality Japanese pot that's from several generations of pot makers. So it's definitely a pot we don't want to break. So I had to be very careful not to crack this pot. So this process is just kind of slow and tedious, but everything about bonsai is kind of slow and tedious. When bonsai really teaches you, the first thing you're going to learn is patience. It takes patience to repot these trees. It takes patience to grow the trees and refine the trees. But this is a dwarf water jasmine. A lot of times you find water jasmine, they'll be grafted on a larger trunk with a smaller leaf. So dwarf, because it makes a much smaller leaf on the tree, has a very fragrant flower, which is really awesome. So I can see that my other water jasmine in the yard is beyond this one with its growth. And that's really because it's getting better water saturation and better food saturation because it's not as root bound. But this spring, I'll be repotting many of my trees. They're all overdue for potting, and now's the time to get it done. So this is actually going pretty well. I mean, I can feel where my root system is very, very tight and where it's loosening up. So we may look up. We may be able to just swing it out of the pot, but I really doubt that that will happen. If we can't do it with this, some people will use a knife and come along here. I'll just use a pair of my scissors and cut through the root system and cut through the rocks. And they'll be ready for a sharpening after today. Because it's definitely going to dull out the tool when I'm using it. Your chopsticks are really a great little tool to use. It's very handy for a lot of different things. These chopsticks too will be available in my store on my YouTube channel here. So you'll be able to purchase sets of tools, individual tools. At some point you'll be able to get some finished material. You'll be able to find pre-bonsai material, bonsai pots, custom-made pots. So we're just really getting started launching the store and the channel. And I hope that you guys are going to find the information that I'm sharing with you very beneficial and help you along on your bonsai journey as well. Let's see how we're doing here. What kind of movement we might have out of this pot already. None at all. It's tight as can be. So we just got to keep going deeper and deeper into the pot and just slowly, slowly do this. As I'm pulling the chopstick up, the reason I'm doing that is because I'm getting below and getting a bite, and when I push it, it's basically doing what the scissor was going to do. It's cutting through those roots. It's tearing the roots. It's not hurting the tree at all. You know, Mother Nature is very, very smart. She's aware that I'm messing with this root. They're aware when I'm cutting the root system. So many people think it's going to kill the tree. It is not going to kill the tree. If cutting roots killed the tree, there would be no art form of bonsai because every tree would die. So that information is not correct. It's very important to always make sure that your tree is repotted. Even though I use inorganic matter, the clay chip that is used in the soil over years does break down and it becomes more compact. And then that's a problem for the water penetration to make it all the way to the bottom of the pot when we're doing our watering. But it's going pretty good here. I think we're making some really good progress with this. If we had just a rectangular pot or a pot that didn't have this Buddha belly on it, it would come out a lot easier. But this is one that's a little bit challenging. So I decided that for our first video about potting, we go ahead and start with one that's a little bit more complicated. And that way, when you guys are going to be repotting a tree that's not in a Buddha belly pot, your job will be a lot easier than what this one is. It won't take you as much of time to get it done. But once we get the tree out of here, you're going to see how root bound it really is. We may not see as much on the sides because I am cutting through this root system to get it out, but it is definitely root bound. You can see when I tried to put the chopstick in, and you can see it even from what I'm doing now. I haven't even made it to the bottom of the pot yet. We're only about halfway to the bottom of the pot. But your chopstick is a really valuable little tool. You can use it for many different things on your bonsai journey. So you might notice that I'm wearing a very cool shirt today. Just had these made. This is something that you can buy on the channel as well. It's a high quality cotton shirt, tie-dye, which is my thing. I'm that old hippie. And it's all embroidered. It's really, really thick. It's very nice. It's very comfortable. It has a really long tail on it. I'm really impressed with them. So I'm hoping that you guys will be interested in some of our t-shirts. We're designing several different t-shirts actually right now with different little slogans and different little branding opportunities on it. And of course, you know, we do our workshops, and we've been selling out workshops here in the Winston and Triad area. We have more workshops coming up in the month of May. And we're having fun doing it. I was really missing bonsai a lot. I hadn't been doing it for over a year. When I moved here to Winston, I've been focused on working on my house and my garden, and I was really missing bonsai a lot. And I decided I needed to get back into my art and reclaim my identity as a bonsai artist. So that's what I've done. And by luck, a young man that I became friends with here several months ago when I first moved here. It's really the reason why I'm doing this today. My friend Mark was behind the camera that you don't see. He was my producer, and better than that, he's my friend. And he was motivating me to do something like this. I was a little scared, to be honest with you. I don't particularly like myself on camera, but I wanted to stay in the art, and I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to have a big major store like I had in Florida and be married to that 7 days a week all the time, although I loved it so much. And I do miss it quite a bit, but I'm in touch with the shop all the time. My apprentice who now owns the shop, I gave that to him last year. And later on this summer, you guys are going to get a glimpse of some really beautiful trees as well, because I'm bringing quite a few of my collection from Florida is going to be brought here into Winston. So there'll be some really beautiful trees and some bigger stock and some tropical trees that certainly the people that follow me here are not used to seeing and really don't have access to. But that's one of the beauties of the store online on YouTube, is I'm going to be able to bring to you guys tropical trees and subtropical trees that you've never worked with and you've never seen. And a lot of people are worried that the trees are going to die. They're not going to die. As long as you either keep them in a bright sunny window throughout your winter months, or even in your garage where I hide mine with some heat, with a little bit of grow light or some sunlight, they're going to survive just well. And you're not going to have any issue with them at all. I learned that I could do it on my first experiment here this year, but I am in need of a greenhouse. Okay, we're getting loose here. We're doing really well. We might actually be able to pull it out of the pot without even doing any more cutting. Because when I'm going through here, I'm taking the stick and I'm going into the belly right here. And I'm pulling that out. And that's what's snipping the roots for me. It's just ripping the roots. But once we go to repot it, we're going to comb all this out anyway. And the tree will get another root trim. And it'll be repotted with all new soil. It's going to be wired back in the pot. So you guys are also going to see here a little bit how we're going to set the pot back up, put the new meshing in, and put our anchor wire back into the pot. A lot of people would ask me, why is the tree wired into a pot? Well, there's a couple of reasons. If we have a tree that's a leaning tree and it's not tied in, it doesn't take very much for that tree to pop out of the soil. So it's there to give the tree stability so it's not wiggling around on a windy day. Because if it's wiggling around, it's breaking your little hair roots and it's damaging the root system on the tree, and it's going to damage, the tree. So we don't want it to wiggle around. So it's there to keep the stability, and it's also there to keep the stance of the tree. Because, there's a lot of thought that goes into even the positioning of a tree into the pot. And to keep that position where we want it, it has to be anchored in. So the wiring is crucial to wiring the tree into the pot. And then in some other videos, you'll see us on this tree probably as well, wiring this tree. I have a young man who's 10, lives next door to me, and he has some interest in bonsai. So I have my first apprentice here in bonsai, who's a 10-year-old young man who lives next door. He's coming here twice a week, and we're doing bonsai. So I'm going to be teaching him, I am teaching him, how to maneuver through this art form. For me, it's really important to teach young people, you guys, the future of bonsai is not in old farts like me. It's in young people. And most people think that bonsai is an art form that's just for a bunch of old men that sit around. There's a lot of that, but that is not where bonsai is. Bonsai is for anyone. There used to be so many men who were just into bonsais. In Florida, with my workshop there, when I had my Florida shop, I had lots of women. And I think even on the workshops that I've been teaching here, I think I've had more women than I've had men. For some reason, people just never engaged women in bonsai, and I just never really understood that. And I engaged the women in bonsai, and I have a lot of ladies that do bonsai. So welcome, ladies. Not everybody does this that are in your own community, but it's a great art form. If you're into gardening, you will love bonsai. It's really the height of horticulture is bonsai, just like most people see like orchids or roses or the top of flower world. So I can tell you one thing, I'm gonna have a mess to clean up in my kitchen today. We was gonna shoot this video outside, but it's cloudy today, it's supposed to rain. I'm not complaining about the rain. We really, really need the rain. It's been very, very dry. All right, let's see what we got here, folks. Okay, we're getting somewhere. We still need to take a little bit more of this out, but it's getting really loose. So I think we're going to slip it out of the pot. The chopstick is really doing the job for us, and we're not having to use any of these scissors at any time. So I mentioned how we're going to rewire this into the pot. That's another product that you'll be able to buy on the YouTube channel and this channel and in the store. So it's going to be a full service shop for you online for supplies and anything that you need for bonsai. I'm actually also bringing in a collection of a lot of old Asian statues and Buddhas and geisha girls that I bought from someone's collection about a year ago. So I'm bringing up a lot of stuff from Florida that you're going to be able to purchase and enjoy, stuff that you're not going to find. Some of these figurines are old figurines, are antique figurines as well. My chopstick's getting to work out today here, fellas. Let's see what we got going on here, folks. All right, we're making some headway. Spin it around, go from the other direction. I do not want to crack this pot. It's a very valuable pot, so we're not going to push our luck because I do not want to break it. It's a one-of-a-kind pot. If it's broken, I'll never see it again. So we're just going to take our time and be careful not to break the pot. It kills me when I see people not spending the time to try and get a tree out of a pot and they just take a hammer and crack it. You know, your bonsai is always a star when you work in bonsai and when you create bonsai. But your pot is also very important. The shape of the pot, the depth of the pot, the color of the pot, all those things can really change the overall feel of the piece of art. You know, we always hear people say the perfect marriage is everything. When you make a perfect marriage in bonsai, it does make a big difference. There are trees that I will pot and have them in my collection, enjoy them, and then I'll bring in some new pots. And immediately I can tell that another pot is going to look better with the tree. I like to play with color. A lot of bonsai artists don't like to play with color. I like to play with color. So when this tree is blooming, you have little, very, very fragrant water jasmine flowers with this beautiful silver and gold pot. I just think it really makes a really good marriage. And it's just a really beautiful pot. Some people are very strict about their pots. They think that you should only use unglazed pots, because unglazed pots never take away from any of the beauty of the tree. And you know, you should never have someone that walks up to your bonsai tree and says, "Oh, what a beautiful pot." That tells you have some issues with your tree. The first thing they should notice is how beautiful your tree is, and then that pot. So that's why some people do not use glazed pots at all, because they figure that no matter what, it steals the glory of the tree. I just don't necessarily agree with that. I think playing with color is a really fun thing. I mean, I make trees in blue pots that have purple flowers. I think it's awesome. At the end of the day, you guys, bonsai is living art and living sculpture. My question always to you is, when is artwork ever wrong? It's never wrong. It's in the eye of the creator and the beholder. So if I make a tree and I love that tree, I'm happy. If you come in and you love it like I love it, that's the icing on the cake. So don't get too engulfed in rules. In my world, I don't. You're going to break rules, and I want you to be free to have fun when you create your bonsais. And I want you to be free and have fun when you choose what pot you like. Just always make sure that you use a pot that's appropriate when you're potting, because there is a balance that you must strike between the height and the width of the tree, and that also comes into what size pot that you use. If I would change the pot of this tree, it would change the way the whole tree looks. If I go to a pot that's even bigger, it's going to absorb a lot of the energy of the tree, and it's going to absorb it into the pot. The pot's going to be overbearing for it. And then if you guys choose to repot and you go with a smaller pot, It's going to look like that little orange guy that blows around the used car lot. It's flipping all around the air like this. It's going to look very topsy-turvy. So there's definitely a balance of size of pot, how thick the pot is, the shape of the pot, the color of the pot. Really all goes into having the forever pot for your bonsai tree. I doubt I will ever change this pot. I like it. I had the pot for quite a while before I even had a tree to put in it. I mean, I have pots here now in my home that I've had for years and years and years that have never had a plant in them. They're just like a beautiful piece of art that I have in my china cabinet and stuff to enjoy. I know other people that have the most amazing bonsai pot collections. Will be worth a lot of money one day, especially when they're all handmade pots and custom-made pots. You always have a lot more value there. All right, let's give this a go again, you guys. I think we're getting closer and closer here. So be very careful when you're doing this. If you're putting too much pressure on this and you crack the pot and this is where you're holding it, you will cut yourself. I have cut my hand on potting a tree one day because I was putting too much pressure trying to pry it out of the pot, and the pot cracked and it cut my hand pretty bad actually. So I don't want to bleed on camera today. So we're going to loosen this up a little more, but I think that one more pass of this we should be coming through. Some of the reason it is holding on a little bit too is our wiring. So I'm going to go ahead and flip it on the side, and you're going to be able to see the guide wire here that's been holding this tree into its position. I cut it from the top, but it's still around the root system. So if we take this out now, the tree's getting loose. It's going to help us to take the pot out, the tree out of the pot a lot more easily. So you'll notice we've got little holes on these pots. We've got big holes. Your big hole is your drain hole. That's to, of course, drain your water away. And then these little holes around here, this is all for your drainage and to tie the tree into the pot. So by taking these tethers from the anchor and from the mesh itself, it's now going to loosen it up a lot more. And I think it will probably just come out of the pot now. So that was a little bit of our angle. These are some wild little plants that are growing in this pot. The little tiny orange jasmine tree I had at my house. And that's what these little guys are right here. So we still have a little bit of an issue. So I'm going to just go in here and try and loosen some more of these up. You can see the matting here. It's really crazy from it being root bound. I'm going to pull it out. You'll be able to see some of that, I do believe. But we're still a little bit of tightness here. So this is just going to allow it to just fall out of the pot. Now it's going to give me some more space here. So I can get this guy out of the pot for you. This is such an important process for you to do on a yearly basis with your trees. You can pretty much assume that usually in 1 year they are root bound, but you can always do that little test that I showed you earlier by looking at it when you're watering it and taking that chopstick and stick it in there. Okay. Here we go, guys. So wait till you see this mass underneath here. So you're gonna know right away that this tree is root bound. Okay. If you flip this over, look how matted all this is. It's completely matted. So this entire mat was going around the whole circular shape of the pot. It was all tucked in the belly. We broke all that away using the chopstick. But now we have to take all of this down. So this is when we use our rake. And the first thing that we want to do is we want to remove from the top. The reason I want to start from the top is this tree hasn't been repotted in like 3 years. So we could have some larger surface roots here that we want to expose and bring to the top of the pot. So before I even take any of the root ball off the bottom, we're going to try and comb some of this out from the top of it. But you can already see that even with this little rake, it's pretty dense. When you're doing this, you want to be careful as you get closer to the pot here, because we don't want to hurt our surface roots. You know, our surface roots on the tree is called Nebari. When you think of an old tree, there's big surface roots that are at the top of the ground that you see. Basically with big tropical trees. They really just really pop out of the ground really, really heavily. We want to, now that we're repotting it, we want to see if we're going to lift the tree a little bit higher and have a new soil line, a new top line for the tree. The tree should have gotten a little bit of a wider trunk over the last couple of years, and it should also have made us some bigger roots. But we need to get these guys out of here. I ought to try to grow this actually. It makes a little bitty, like a little orange about the size of my finger. It grew up in my yard. I don't even know where it came from, honestly. And I was going to make it into a bonsai tree, and I forgot to dig it up out of my yard. Maybe I can have my person who bought my house send it to me. But it's actually a very cool plant. But we don't want to leave this in here. You know, you don't want to leave weeds and all these little trigonal plants in here because they are sucking nutrients out of your soil. They're stealing water. A lot of times we use moss, and you can see some moss growing here. Moss is really, really pretty on the trees. It makes like a lawn or either the valley in the forest where the tree is growing. But to keep moss alive, it has to be damp and mostly shaded. No bonsai tree wants to be wet and living in the shade. A cypress tree lives in a swamp, but it gets sun. So, you know, you can use moss. You just have to be careful with it because it can create a fungus problem, especially when you're doing trees in tropical areas like Florida, because it's so humid. You know, what I'm learning here is it's really dry. And I'm not even paying attention. I'm out working on my bonsais. I'm like, I'm getting a cramp in my hand. What's going on here? And it's because I'm not drinking enough water. And Florida is so hot, I was always drinking water. Here it's not hot. So I find myself just working, and I'm not giving myself enough water. Even the trees, I'm having to learn how to water them more properly because even though it's not hot, there is no humidity in the air. So it's actually drying out the surface of the soil and drying out the root ball. So we do have some more decent roots right here. You can see here, we have a nice Nebari sticking out of the ground. So I want to work on this and see if we can try and get more of that and raise it up to the top a little bit more so we can take advantage of that. So you might wonder, you know, why do you want to have surface roots? What's the purpose of having this when you're repotting the tree? Well, because we're repotting, and now's the time to look for that. Again, old, big roots raising out of the ground gives the tree more age because old trees have big roots coming out of the ground, and it gives it more character. It just makes it a lot more interesting other than just having a dirt soil line over the top of it. So that's why I'm spending time doing this. I want to see if we have a little bit more Nebari that we could work with. I can see we have a couple of roots right here. They look like it's coming around the pot. So we do have something that's a little bit more substantial than what we started with. This guy is really nice, so we're definitely going to keep all this. So when you're starting to decide if you want to keep some of the roots and remove some of the roots, you might be wondering, you know, well, what should I do? How do I keep the roots in place? Do I keep all of the roots? You don't keep all of the roots. You want to take away all the little bitty hair roots that are all around the big roots. You want to have a place when you're repotting your tree so your eye has a place to land. And the viewpoint of the tree should begin at the base of the tree, where the big roots are and where your trunk is at. So that's why I'm digging here. I want to try and find a little bit more of some nice roots to bring to the surface. I'm going to go ahead and cut away the little roots that aren't really bringing a whole lot to the party and leave the more substantial roots. And that's also going to give more energy to the bigger roots as the tree is growing, and is going to let them fatten up instead of having a lot of little bitty hair roots running all over the top of the surface. We only want those little small roots really in the bottom of the tree, into the pot. We don't need them over the top of the surface. So I'm just going to go ahead and take advantage of my time to do this and do it the right way, which is look for the Nebari, trim away the little bitty roots from everything so we can see the nice big roots that we're going to bring up to the surface. And that's why I'm going to start cutting this down. This is going to be the new top of the tree, or the new pot line. It's going to be up here where I'm trimming all this away. So these roots here will stick up a lot more out of the pot, and you can place them where you want. So, you know, we're going to wire the tree into the pot. We always have the tree wired into the pot. I'm sure that you know that bonsai artists wire branches as well, but do you know that we also wire root systems? So if I have some really big roots here, let's say I only have 2 or 3, and it's the only ones I want, the only ones that I have, you can split these roots with a root splitter tool that we have in the tool kits that you'll be able to buy online. And those will allow you to split a root in half. And then you can put wire on it, the bonsai wire, and you can spread it out and you can fan it out in that scalene triangle look, which is really like your hand, just like our pads will all spread out to be. And you can spread your root system out as well. So when you're repotting, it's the right time to do other maintenance on the tree because you got it out of the pot. You can see what's going on with the root system. So that's what we're doing. We're going to expose some nice roots here. And then we'll start removing more dirt from the bottoms and the side of the tree as well. And when we change out the bonsai mix, we will also be coming through here with our chopstick and really going really aggressively, blending in the new bonsai mix with the soil that remains. And you're always going to have a root ball to tie in. You want to be really careful. Some people get a little excited and they will bare root the entire tree. That is not a good plan because it's very difficult for you now to tie that tree into the pot because you cut away all the root system. So anytime you're potting, you always have to leave an undisturbed portion of that root ball intact so you can come in and anchor this tree into the pot. So we're slowly getting us a better soil line here. See, I'm just trying to take some of these out because we have a nice root here that I want to take advantage of. So I'm going to move this away. And from our little digging now we have us a nice, another set of roots here. There will be some more surface roots for us. And all this now is going to be sticking out the top of the soil. It's going to change the look of the tree. This tree will be very, very happy once we get it repotted. I'll repot it. I'll leave it in the shade for a couple of days in the garden. And then I'll put it back in some really good sun. Start hitting it with some fertilizer. And before you know it, the tree is going to flush out with all new leaves and look really beautiful. Before I do that, I'm going to wire this tree. I mentioned my apprentice and I was working on this tree last week. What we did was spent an hour and 45 minutes just taking the wire off of this tree. So I was teaching him how to take it off without cutting it off because it is faster, but it's also a lot more dangerous when you take it off the wire, off the branches, when you're not using your wire removal tool. Also something that will be available to you in the store. So I'm sure you guys can see now what we're getting, how we're getting a better look here. We're getting more surface roots. I don't really see very many on this side. We're going to do a little bit more trimming, see what we can find. We'll revisit this tree on another video, and you guys will be able to see what's happened since I repotted it and wired it and regrow it. So we'll probably do a wiring video with this tree. We may as well, since we're already taking it on its process. A lot of times when I wire branches, I always do it while the tree is still in a grow pot. If I'm going to do it at the very beginning, because it's root bound, just like this tree is as well. And it just doesn't wiggle around the pot. It makes it a little bit easier to wire it. But once you start potting the trees, you're always going to wire it into the pot again. If I wanted to be more careful, I could have wired the whole tree out today, then repotted it, and then it would have been even more stable. You wouldn't have to worry about it losing its position by aggressively putting on that wire to bend and manipulate these branches. But this tree is going to have a little bit of an overhaul. Repotting today. I'm going to do some wiring. I'm going to bring down the apex. It's gotten too tall. I had lost a branch on the tree. A big palm frond fell and hit it. I used to watch them all the time in Florida, and when they got close to falling, I'd move my trees. Well, we had a big rainstorm come in, and the palm frond was knocked down. It snapped it, and it broke a really beautiful branch on my tree, this branch here. And I knew something would grow back, so I just left it alone, and I let it grow back for about, 3 or 4 years now. I now have a nice branch here. So, you know, if something breaks, remember that Mother Nature is very smart. And so many times, wherever you break a branch, if you leave it alone, it's going to grow a branch back in the same position once again. So we're looking good here, you guys. Everything's really looking nice. I think we're about where we're going to be here as far as finding us any kind of more Nebari on the tree whatsoever. We did get a little bit more flare on the trunk. You can notice we see a little bit more of the width of the trunk, which is also very desirable in the tree to have a nice spread at the bottom of the trunk where it hits the ground. We have that. We've got some nice root system sticking out of the tree here that we're going to expose. We're going to repot it to make it have a better look and give it some more age and some more character. So I'm just going to keep trimming this down off the top so we get a better clean line of our root system, and we know exactly where our soil line is going to end when we put it back into its bonsai pot. So of course, once you're done potting, you need to make sure you water the tree well. Always when you water, you want to saturate that tree soaking wet until it starts to run over the edges, and then let it drain out and then do it again. And that way you'll be certain that you have saturated the root system all the way through the entire pot. You always want to do that. A lot of people just look on the top of the pot and think, oh, well, I touched it on the top. It was dry and I went ahead and watered it. You really want to get in the habit of learning your water cycle for the different seasons, for different trees. You could always take a little chopstick and move the soil away and put your finger down into the pot. And if your finger comes back damp, you don't need to water. If it comes back dry, it's time to water. People are confused a lot about what overwatering and what underwatering looks like when you're doing your bonsais. Usually, rule of thumb, overwatering, you have a lot of yellow leaves on your tree at one time. That's telling you the tree is drowning. If the tree has a wilted leaf, then of course, that's lack of water, and you need to water right away. Because if you don't, the leaf will go too far, and then they're going to get crunchy and they're all going to fall off. But the good news is they're all going to grow back. So mistakes happen. Don't be afraid. You got to be brave when you're doing bonsai sometimes. You always have someone that can help guide you. And by following on the channel here, you're going to learn a lot of stuff from me. And I make it very simple. I'm not going to be talking over your head with all kind of technical terms that I don't know anyway. I've always said that my bonsai class is blue-collar bonsai because I'm a blue-collar person. And I want to make bonsai approachable for everybody to enjoy the art. And you don't have to be rich to be in bonsai. We're going to have other videos in the future that will take you guys shopping with us and find some very interesting nursery stock or some big box stores and local nurseries here in Winston, and how we're going to take one of those trees that you might pay $10, $20, $30 for and make it into a beautiful bonsai tree that could be worth several hundreds of dollars, if not more, depending on the species. So there's going to be some really great times where you and I are going to be learning together. I've only lived in North Carolina now for a year on April the 18th of this year. So I have a lot to learn about local species. But I'm not afraid, you guys. I'm not afraid, because I know at the end of the day, they're all just trees. And most of them are all going to respond the same way no matter what I do to them. But they are going to teach me. And that's have been the greatest lessons in my life. You know, I've always told people I'm not trained by any bonsai master. I don't belong to any clubs. I don't read bonsai books. I have terrible attention span. I haven't watched videos. I've only watched a video when I started making a YouTube channel, so I figured I need to see what everybody else is doing. But I hardly even watched that. I've learned from the trees. The trees have been my sensei, and they've been the best sensei for me. So if you're not sure what that is, it just means teacher. So I've learned from the trees, and I've killed several trees learning this art. But now when I teach, I'm teaching from hard knock school, you guys. I'm teaching the way I learn and just by hands-on work. I know now what I can do and I can't do to certain trees. And I'm sure some of these North Carolina trees are going to get mad at me one day because I'm going to do something that I'm not supposed to do to them. But I'm not sure what that could be. So far, so good. I've used some local trees and I've had some good success. All right, so I think we're really going to be where we are now for our soil line. I don't see any of the larger roots coming up in this at all. So now what we want to do is start turning our tree on the side, and we want to start raking out this massive matted root system that we have here. This is not good. All this has got to come out. and you just comb it out as much as you can. So I'm going to loosen this up some all through the side and the bottom. And to show you, to speed it up, you do not have to just sit here all day long and rake all of this out, because we're going to remove 75% of all the root and soil from this tree today. So in my mind, what's the purpose of just sitting here combing all this out when we know we're going to remove it? So this is what I've always done. Just turn the tree to the side, and I'm going to start cutting this. And just cut a nice flat disc, kind of like a hockey puck, nice and flat, but certainly much bigger. You never want to put your tree back into a pot and it's immediately root bound. So if I don't cut this root ball down enough, when I put it in the pot, it's going to be root bound by the end of the summer. So you always need to leave some space around the outside of the pot, depending on the size of the pot and the size of the tree. It could even be from just maybe an inch to several inches. And that way the tree has a whole new area for all of the new roots to grow into. There's nothing standing in its way. But you can see how matted this tree really is. It's very clear to me that it's been 3 years since this tree's been repotted. And it's been struggling when I'm watering it, even when I brought it here, and I knew why. So when I water it, I have to water it 3 or 4 times the day that I water it to make sure all the root system was completely saturated. But once I do this, the water is going to run through this plant like it's in a colander, because it almost is. Because we make a soil that's very loose and very dry. And the reason that bonsai artists use that soil like I make, and everybody makes their own, pretty much the same all the way around, honestly. Everybody has one little secret of something that they use. But in general, you want that soil to be loose and airy, so it's easy for the little roots to climb through and grow. And it's easy for the tree to get oxygen to the root system. And of course, for the water not to just puddle. Especially when I'm in Florida, if you're growing and you have your tree in a black pot and my shells were all painted black and my pedestals were black, that hot Florida sun will start boiling that root system. So some people still use just a dirt, but I never have. Florida has so much rain, you really have to have a soil that drains. But what I've noticed since I've moved here and reading a little bit about stuff and looking around, that even here, everybody pretty much uses the same soil that I use in Florida. So it really doesn't matter if it's a tropical tree or if it's a cold weather plant. It doesn't really matter, not in my mind. And you know, you can get really crazy with your soils and all this kinds of stuff in bonsai. And if you're that person, more power to you. If you want to be so technical, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just not that guy. I don't like everything being so technical. I've learned what I can and can't do. And that's exactly what I apply to my tree. So you can see now that we're getting down to some of the original dirt that was still left on this tree when I first got this and made it into a bonsai tree. So this is some of the original root ball. So I'm repotting, so I want to take more of that away, and eventually, as blending the soil into this existing dirt, it will also start taking on the same properties of how much water it's going to need. Because if we just leave a lot of dirt in this area, then this portion holds a lot more water, and the outside perimeter doesn't hold as much water. So at some point, you want to try to make sure as you're potting year after year, if you had the pot, to slowly remove a little bit more and try to get it down to it being a uniform soil all the way around the entire pot. So your drainage will be the same. But when we come in here and repot, I'm going to put soil up here. But just by doing this, you can see it's going to really loosen it up. And so when I put the new soil on top of this, by loosening this some, it's going to allow it to start blending in as well. And it's aerating it. So it's a good thing to do on your pots on a regular basis, is aerating. People aerate their lawns. It's the same idea. So all I'm doing is, even when this is in new soil, I come along and I poke these holes everywhere. And it's like a little colander, so it makes all the holes, so all the water goes right in there. And it's giving you the opportunity to make sure that the tree is being evenly watered all the way around the whole plant. So that's why I'm poking these holes into here now, to start loosening this up some. So when we put it in the pot, and we put new soil on the bottom and the tops and the bottom, all around the edges of the pot, we'll be able to blend it in a little bit more easily because this is already being aerated. Aerating is just making holes into it. So at some point in summer, even though you just repotted it, you know it's not going to be root bound, but this will never hurt. And you want to be careful with using chopsticks that are wooden. The ones that I'm selling are all steel. The wooden ones get wet and then they splinter. And so then when you're slipping it into the root system, it's grabbing roots and it's ripping roots and it's tearing roots. And you don't want to do that. So by using these steel chopsticks, that's never going to grab onto the roots and rip all your roots up. It goes in really easily. It comes out really easily. It's a great little tool to use. It's always something that's confusing when I teach about why you have a chopstick. Chopstick's an important tool, and you use it every time you repot. You're going to use it to aerate. It's just an easy tool to work with, and it's really something that's important to your mix. Everybody uses something like this, a chopstick or some kind of tools that you can purchase. But stay away from the ones you're going to get for free when you go eat sushi. They are not going to be best because they're going to rip roots when they start to splinter. All right, this is looking pretty good. So we're gonna get our pot back up here and see how much more of this soil we should take away. But look at all the stuff we've removed. That's a huge amount of soil. We removed this giant mass, and this is what was wrapping around the entire pot, not just at the bottom. We just didn't see it as much because I had to break it all away with my chopstick to get it out of the Buddha belly shaped pot. If it wouldn't have been the Buddha belly pot, I could have really just loosened it and probably pulled it right out of the pot. You could have seen the whole mass of roots, how it's all stuck on here. So you can already see we've gone quite a bit. So that's going to be enough reduction for our root ball. So now we need to set this pot back up. We have to get this pot set up. So I'm making a lot of housework for myself here, putting this on my countertops, but we're working indoors today, so I expected a little bit of a mess. So we need to cut this mesh to be able to cover the size of these holes. And we've got several holes in here. This particular pot does not have small holes to wire your tree into place. They just put them all the same size all the way around the whole pot. So we're gonna have to put mesh on every single one of these holes to make sure that our new bonsai mix is not falling out the bottom of the pot. So we're gonna make sure that it has a good coverage. It's a pretty easy process to do. You'd be surprised how many people struggle with this process, and I've never understood why. It's pretty simple and point blank. You know, there's a fancy way to put this wire in, you curl it, it looks like a little bow tie. There's a name for it. I have no idea what it is. And it really doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't have to be pretty. Nobody's picking up your pot and going, oh, how pretty did you put the wire that's holding your tree in? Nobody's looking at that. It's not an important thing. So we talked about wire, how wire comes in many, many different gauges. We want a gauge that's a little bit thick enough that's going to be able to hold this wire in place, this mesh in place, and not just fall out the bottom of it. So it's not a difficult thing to do. We're just going to get us 5 pieces of short wire to cover all of our holes. And all we're going to do is make like a little staple. I'll show you how easy it is. It's a very simple process. You always want to make sure you put your mesh, and you always want to make sure your mesh is anchored in there as well, so it's not moving around and falling out. So you can measure the hole. If you're good at eyeballing it, you can eyeball it. So all we're going to do is I take about 1/3 of the wire, put it on my tool and push it, get a really tight 90-degree turn. If I'm unsure about the actual width of it, because we do want it to be the width of the hole, not loose because it can move around. And if it's too tight, it's not going to lay flat in the bottom of the pot. You're going to have a McDonald's arch, and we do not want that. So I'm just going to go ahead and measure it so I know that it's the exact size. So this should go right into the hole and be snug, and it does. So now we're going to take our little staple, basically, because that's what it looks like, a little staple. And we're going to put it through the middle of our mesh. And now we're going to end up with a little pagoda. So now we're going to go from the inside of the pot. You're going to drop this wire in and push it in. I usually like to hold it with one hand and pull it and make sure it's nice and snug. So I'm going to pull this and wiggle it until I know it's flat on the bottom of the inside of that pot. And then I spread it out horizontally like this. That's all you have to do. It's a very easy process. The problem with a pot that doesn't have a wire hole in it is that when you wire the tree into the pot now, you guys are going to have to wire it through the drain holes. And you want to make sure you use a thick enough wire, if that's the case with your pot, that it doesn't have those holes to tie the tree in. Because if it's not a thick enough wire and you don't put your tether cable on the inside of the hole, which would be in here instead of here, then when you pull it to tie it, it's going to make the mesh slide. And then all your soil is going to start falling out of your pot every time you water. So we want to avoid that for sure. So even though it's just putting just a little mesh, you want to do it correctly and make sure that it doesn't wiggle around and it doesn't open up the hole. So I'm just repeating this process over and over, going through each hole. Making sure it's really, really nice and flat on the inside of the pot and spread it out. We'll cover all of these and then we're going to put in a much heavier gauge wire to tether the tree into the pot. You don't want to use a little thin wire, especially on a big tree, because the tree is too heavy. And when it goes to move it a little bit, that little wire is going to snap. So you always want to make sure you use a wire that's heavy enough to tie the tree into the pot. So the bigger the tree, the heavier the tree, the bigger and heavier the anchor wire is going to be also, to make sure that everything is stable. And you're not going to have any issues with it. We got 2 more to go here and we'll put in our tether wire. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get a layer of my bonsai mix on the bottom of the pot to set it up for drainage. And so it's nice and loose and the new root system will all start growing in there really quickly now. You know, as I mentioned, Mother Nature's a very smart chick, and she is. She knows this tree is having some root thing going on. She's aware, and everybody thinks it's going to really freak it out. It puts it in a little bit of shock, but what it does, it kicks Mother Nature into gear. She goes, okay, we have a little bit of a problem here. We lost some roots. We need to regrow some roots here. We need to do it. And that's all it really does. It just stresses the plant out a little bit. So now we're going to put in our tether wire, and that's a fairly decent sized trunk. So we're going to go with a larger wire. This is a 4.5 millimeter wire. As I mentioned, it comes from 1 millimeter, which is thin as hair. You can just shake it and it'll bend it. And it comes as thick as 8 millimeter, which I don't even work with because I can't bend it. It's too complicated for me to bend it, and it hurts my hand. So a little trick is if you're ever wiring a branch, you're trying to wire a tree in the pot and you can't bend the wire, it's just too heavy for you to bend, all you got to do is just double it. So if you want a 5 wire, and that's what you're going to need, you just put 2.5 side by side, it becomes the 5. So we're going to make another big staple. We got to make sure this is long enough to come out of the pot and wrap it around the tree. I always kind of err on the side of caution and make it a little longer. Had someone asked me the other day what I do with all this wire that's left over. In Florida, I used to save it, and the guys that come around to your house, you know, once a month and collect metal, I stopped him one day and told him, this is like 80 pounds of aluminum in here. So when you see this container here, stop and get it. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting a little hole in this mesh because the holes in the mesh are way too small for this wire to go through. So if I don't cut a little bit of a hole, when I try to push the wire through, it's going to start bending this wire and it's going to make it collapse inside of the pot. So we're going to do a little quick measure. I don't need to wire it across each side, top left and bottom right. It's going to anchor it. It's going to hold it in. It's the same process. I'm pushing it against the tool to get a really tight turn where it's very sharp. I'm going to go back to the top left, right, bottom. I'm measuring from the inside of the circle that goes in toward the pot, not the exterior of the hole. Because when you do that, then what happens is when you tie in the plant, it'll start ripping that mesh, or it'll drag it across the pot and tear it out. All right, so we poked a hole here and here. So we're going to go ahead and feed our wire through now. You definitely need to hold the pot and the mesh in here because this is a much heavier gauge wire and it could just push the mesh right out of the pot. So we got the first side in. We're going to flip it over, come around this way so you guys can see where it's going to go in. I poked the hole right in here, so it should go right through. There we go. So this is going to slide right in from the bottom of the pot. Notice that it fits right in, and it's right snug with the edges of the exterior of the hole. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to hold it, pull it tight so it's not loose at the bottom, and I'm molding it into the side of the pot. The reason I'm doing that is because I got to get this tree in here and this wire's in the way. So by molding it into the side of the pot, it's opening up the entire pot for us to be able to put in our soil. So we are ready now to go ahead and put a layer of our bonsai soil. So let's get that in, and we got our soil right over here. I forgot where we had it. I'm not used to working in my kitchen, but we're getting the job done. Oh, come on. All right, so you're going to notice that this soil is not soil. There's anything about it that's actually dirt. You can look at this and see what it is. It's very loose, very airy for the tree to grow into. In here we have a clay chip, and that's what's going to hold the moisture and the fertilizer, the little tan chip. And our other chips are pumice, and that is going to make us a nice soil that we can grow in. There's another component I normally use in here to make it a little bit more airy. I'm just waiting for that to come in. And when we have this bonsai mix online, it will have everything that you need to grow a beautiful tree and a healthy tree that will hold the right amount of water and still have good drainage. So we need to check and see where our soil line is going to be now, because we have now put us a new layer in here. We don't want the tree sitting too low. That's pretty good, about right here. So this is where you got to think about where you position the tree. This is a leaning tree, and I designed it to be a leaning tree. So this is where, when you do workshops, you go back to your original rules about placement of the tree in the pot. And that is important. So because this tree is a leaning tree, and it leans in one direction, we want to move the tree in the opposite direction if we want to lean this way. If we wanted the tree to be an upright tree and do this way, then I can plant the tree like this and make it into an upright tree. It was an upright tree before. But if I decide to change it and say, well, I think I want to make it more of a leaning tree, and maybe do it like this, have my branch structure here, then I can do that. And you know what? I think we might do that today. We're going to change the position of this tree. Instead of making the tree this way in the pot, I think I want to change it, and I'm going to put it sideways. So now I'm going to put the tree like this. And this is going to come way to one side, and this is going to be the open side of the tree. I just feel like I want to give it a new, different look today. And so because I can, then that's what we're going to do. So to do that, we need to make sure that the tree is positioned correctly. If you notice the bend of the trunk, when it comes back, it anchors here. We want to try and get the apex of the tree in alignment with the trunk. So when I pot it, I'm going to pot it at this angle. So where it touches the base of the soil, if we travel straight up, we're going to run into the apex of the tree. Even this part, I'm going to take one of these branches out. So the tree is going to get a little bit of a facelift when we start to trim it. So now that I'm changing the angle, and I want to make sure the tree is upright when I'm potting it, I need to bolster the soil. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start tucking it in over here to give me the spacing that I want and the design that I'm going for. So now we just come along and we're going to keep putting in our soil all the way around the pot and get it all nestled in nice and tucked in. We're going to get this tucked in and get it a little tight here, and then we're going to wire it in, and then we'll come back and finish up our soil. I don't like it when you see the wire sticking out of the top of the pot. That's just a pet peeve of mine. It always bothers me. So when I pot, I always want to make sure that you don't see the wire. So now we're going to come across here and see we have some big roots back here. We do not want to hurt those roots. So I'm taking the tether wire and it's going underneath that root system. So we're not going to break it. We get a little twist on the opposite side here. And this is going to get our anchor all set. And this is where we start really tying it in. So this is where you want to make sure that the tree is where you want it. Your position is where you want it. And I think it is where I like it to be. We want that trunk always to be dead center in the depth of the pot, and it is. So now we just start to anchor. We're going to take this big wire, We're going to pull it and twist. By pulling, it's getting the slack. You may see like about a ½ inch of slack just came up. That's coming from the bottom of the pot and where we tucked it in on the inside of the pot, inside the Buddha belly. So that we have to make sure that comes out. So that's why I'm pulling and twisting. You can see this is why I use my electrical tool. There's no way I can turn this with my arthritis in a small tool. Hurts my hands too much. So we're looking good here, folks. There we go. This tree is not moving. You want the tree to be so tight that you can literally lift it up by the trunk and it's not going to come out of the pot and it's not going to move. And it's nice and straight. So we're going to cut off this excess. We don't have as much to tuck in. Even that's hard for me to cut. There we go. And I'm just going to take that into my tool and I'm going to pound it in. Now it's nice and snug. You don't see that ugly wire. And now we're just going to continue with the rest of our soil and get us our soil all the way around. And then we're going to start locking the tree into place with the chopstick. And then you will have a completely new potting all set up, ready to go. Going to go back in the garden in the shade for today. We're supposed to get some rain, which would be great for the tree to get some rain. If you have a way to catch your rain, you always want to do that for your tree. There's nothing better than the rain. Florida, we get a lot of tropical storms. You get them here too, but not big tropical storms we have here, but you get thunderstorms here. And it never fails that when thunderstorms are coming, I get text messages and phone calls from people asking, should I bring the tree inside? It's going to have a thunderstorm and lightning and raining. No, don't bring the tree inside. Because what's happening is when the lightning is striking in the air, it's fortifying the ions in the atmosphere. And the ions is God's fertilizer. So when you have those thunderstorms, those heavy rains coming, the best thing you can do is put your tree outside. Just make sure it doesn't get blown over because it's going to grow like crazy. There's a tree that I used to have in Florida called a Texas ebony. And it makes a really rough trunk. It has thorns on it, a really beautiful golden yellow flower. And I had never worked with the species. And when I got some, I'm like, oh man, all my other plants are blooming and flowering. Why isn't this one flowering? I don't understand. I gave it fertilizer, no flower. It just kind of sat there. The first summer rain came, and in 5 days, that tree set the most beautiful flowers. And it would only bloom for me after it rained. It just goes to show you the power of the rain. So now we're just taking my chopstick over here. We still have some of the original dirt. So you can see it's a little bit looser now because we combed it out. It's not as matted. And I aerated it some before we put it in here. So I just want to make sure that I'm going all the way down to the bottom of that pot and just anchor, 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 anchor. And as we do this, the tree is going to get more and more stable because this rock and this bonsai mix, which is a lot of rock, is locking it into the position that we have established by the wire and what stance we want it to have. This is going to help lock it in. And by blending it in on top of the root ball, I'm forcing my new bonsai mix to go inside of that old root ball, which is going to help level out the watering across the whole surface of the tree. If you wouldn't really blend it, this side will dry out really fast and this is going to stay wet and it's going to cause issues. And when you do this, you want to make sure you're going all the way to the bottom. Hit the bottom of the pot. And you can see as the soil goes lower and lower, it's because it's blending in and it's locking the tree into position. So we're just going to do this across the whole tree until I know that it's really nice and packed. Then the next thing we would be doing is to take it outside and water it. And when you water, you want to water gently with a shower on your hose, not a power edge. You're going to wash out a lot of your soil, and you could expose some very important roots that could all start dying. So you water gently every time. Not a storming rain. It's good to wet the leaves as well. Trees don't necessarily drink water from leaves, but what it does is it opens up all the pores on the leaves so the trees can breathe more easily. I always ask people in workshops, you know, the importance of when you water. You always water in the morning. Even your flower beds, anything in your yard should be watered in the morning. Plants and trees do not grow at night. They don't really sit there and grow at night. They need the sun to grow and you need water. So during the day, your bonsai trees are taking in carbon dioxide all day long, and they are converting it to oxygen. So in the morning, when you get up, I'm sure you've been outside early in the morning sometime, you go, wow, the air is so fresh out here. It feels so fresh and clean. And it's because it is. That's when we have the most oxygen on the planet, is in that morning, because the plants are now waking up. They're releasing all the oxygen that they've converted during the day. And that's why your air is so much more clean smelling and so fresh in the morning, because it is clean and fresh. We haven't polluted it yet with our cars and all the craziness. So just remember that, you know, it's a living thing here, and it is aware that I cut the root system. She's not crying right now, but in my mind, I hear her crying because she knows I'm messing with her and I'm ripping roots and poking roots, and it's aware of what's happening. It's not going to kill it. This tree is going to start thriving like crazy after this is done. It's really going to bring it around the corner. All right, you guys. Our soil is all layered in. Everything looks good. We have the little Nebari that we wanted to save and bring to the surface over here. We have another piece of it right on this side. So I'm going to move a little bit of our stones and our soil. You can see the Nebari. And then once we water, this is going to compact down some more, and it's going to just have a great water system now. It's going to flow very easily. I think it's kind of fun that I changed the stance of the tree. That wasn't my plan today, but I'm looking at it. I'm like, you know what? I think I want to change the position of this tree. So there we go. You never know. I might change my mind again in summer and put it the other way. But I really like this. I'm really liking the way this looks. So, you know, thank you for subscribing to the channel. There's going to be a lot more content coming. Don't forget, you can buy our workshops online. You're going to be able to start buying tools and supplies and pots and figurines. Everything I sold in a brick and mortar store, you'll be able to buy now through my website. Anything you're buying and you're in Winston, I will bring it to your home for you and deliver it to you. And if you live outside the city, of course, then those things will be mailed to you. So please check out the site. Follow me. Stay tuned to what's going on. We're just in our crawling stages, but we have a lot more to do and a lot more to give you and a lot more to offer. This is going to be a place where you're going to learn a lot. And what you're always going to have from me is peace, love, and bonsai.